The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
There we go. Uh, First off, I just got a note. Frasier, look to your right. Is there somebody else in the car with you?
No?
Okay, just make sure. Because I noticed you glanced over there, and it just made me a little bit uncomfortable. Just got to make sure that there's not like a an informant or anything in the car.
Is that the real reason, or did you think you saw some dead people there?
Maybe a ghost. Could have been. Who knows? Maybe it was a ghost that made me think that there was somebody there.
Well, notice he also asked, is there a person next to me? And so I had to answer truthfully.
Right. There could be a monster next to you, and you didn't have to
Yes,
say
That's
anything.
right.
right,
That's right.
exactly.
There could
That's
be a
right.
cretin, just
Well,
a
what?
despicable person.
What are you doing in California, man?
Well, I took a spontaneous trip. One of my closest friends that I was in the Air Force with, he lives in Texas, and he called me
I
on
thought
Monday
we were
about
making
12.
so much progress. I thought we
Yeah,
were becoming besties.
he called, yeah, I said one of. He
Okay.
called me at 12:30 on Monday, and we were just talking about holiday plans and how, mostly everybody in my life has been out of town. And 3 hours later, I was on a plane to California. So spontaneous trip going to see his family and his wife's family. And so
I loved your style, man.
I made it. Yeah.
So did you book your return flight too, or
Yeah.
just
Next week, I'll be here like 9 or 10 days.
okay? Right on. Is that like so to buy like a flight just hours beforehand, like super? Is that super expensive or is it
Well,
cheaper?
I expected it to be more expensive. I mean, it was spontaneous, but I think we were realistic about it. I mean, if I went on there and flights were like 2 grand, I wasn't going to do it, but it was reasonable. I was like, oh, this worked out, and that's also part of the reason why I'm flying back next uh Wednesday, because if I waited another day or went back a day sooner, it was a lot more expensive. So I think it lined up.
Nice. Clayton, what are you up to?
I'm trying to drag. I have this window minimized, and I'm trying to keep this window open and my Google open spontaneously, but it was not. Of course, now, as soon as you start talking about it, it works perfectly.
Are
Of
you
course,
trying to
now it's
backtrack us
good.
or what? Why you have to have
Yeah,
Google open?
I'm just trying to verify what you
Um, I
Weisenheimers are
was
up to. You
I was
think you're
told there
getting one
would
over on me?
I was told there would be no
California.
fact
Okay,
checking.
we'll see about this.
Let's just see how much flights really were.
Yeah, I wish I had an inhaler to hit when you said that. Oh yeah.
But did you guys so Fraser, I know you didn't. Clayton, did you guys celebrate? And this is because Fraser doesn't celebrate Christmas. Um,
Okay, I
I'm just
respect
I'm,
that.
just- I'm just kidding.
No, I accept
It,
all walks of faith and all paths. I expect it. I accept it all. You're good.
his kids were somewhere else and his parents were somewhere
Namaste.
else. So I figured he just didn't celebrate. Anyway, you guys celebrate yesterday, Clinton?
Yeah, we did. Yesterday and the day before, I feel like we're starting to call some audibles on these Christmas traditions, and I'm here for it. Like, I'm here to support the family, and I'm definitely not here to cause any waves or to make any commotion or disrupt the flow, right?
That's
I'm he-
weird. I don't
I'm
know
here.
that I hear what you're
People
saying.
say
I don't
that
know that I
about me.
believe it.
People say that about me. Like that dude's copacetic. He's not here to make any waves. Well, I know we don't do this like in our house, mine and Ashley's house, but I think it's kind of bullshit. We when I was a kid, we opened there's we tried to justify this with some self-righteousness, but we opened all of the presents on Christmas Eve. Like all of the presents were opened on Christmas Eve.
That's blasphemous, dude.
That's when we ate the turkey. That's when we had the green bean casserole, some pumpkin pies. And then on Christmas Day, uh, I think this happened every year, but I don't remember it every year. That's when we opened the presents from Santa Claus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he came by on Christmas Eve.
Did
Did he bring like how many presents did Santa Claus bring?
One.
Okay,
One.
good.
You got one present from Santa. The rest were from mom.
Your hardworking mom. Yeah.
Yeah, my dishwashing mom. But all them presents were opened on Christmas Eve. So go back to Christmas Eve a couple days ago. Allie, I think she's picked up on pieces, but she's getting really good at using this stuff against me. She was like, "Hey, Daddy, I want to open one present." And I was getting ready to say, "Absolutely, let's open them all." And Ashley was like, "App. Wait till Christmas. Wait till Christmas." And Allie was like, "Daddy, when did you open your presents?" And she knows I'm gonna keep it 100. My little baby, she knows me. She knows I'm gonna keep it 100. I was like, I opened them all on Christmas Eve. And
And
she
I
looked,
turned out okay.
yeah, look at me. I'm all right. I opened them all on Christmas Eve, and on Christmas Day, we opened the presents from Santa Claus. And she looked at mommy. She was like, I wish we had that family tradition. And Ashley was like, well, we don't, blah, 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 blah. Well, anyway, so that leads me to now we did all of our Christmas celebrating, like food wise. I'd say the not so much fun stuff. I don't know, maybe it's still fun, but the not as glamorous stuff of Christmas we did on Christmas Eve. The fooding and Christmas caroling, and we still did that yesterday. But
You did
yesterday,
Christmas caroling?
like singing some songs.
Yeah. Did you really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we do
Nice.
sometimes.
Nice. Good. Like,
It,
did you go to different houses?
oh no, just in our living room.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I want to do that though. Maybe go to other houses. Cash would do that with me. Allie would be there, but that'd be just it. It'd just be us. Everyone else would die from embarrassment. But yeah, we opened up presents yesterday. I ate like I mean, just poo poo. I don't like eating a lot of sugar, but yet past 2 days I ate sugar.
Dude, I've been eating cookies nonstop. Nonstop for like the past 4 days. And not only have I eaten them consistently, I'm just eating so many of them.
Yeah, like
Like
it's
just for no
embarrassment.
reason, for no reason. Just I'll walk by the plate and just grab three peanut butter cookies. No
Yeah.
reason, just because they're there. Which is a
Yeah.
which is really a problem given my lack of running.
Diabetes.
Given my lack of running over the past month or so.
That
It's gonna
and
be
your
a
type
problem.
2 diabetes.
And my diabetes that's
You're gonna lose that
coming
foot.
on.
Why have you not been running?
I
Yeah,
don't
why
know.
have you not been running?
Because I'm a freaking slacker. I don't know. Like I
Yeah,
I
where's all
want
your
to.
discipline going? No discipline in running, no
That's what I
discipline with
did.
the sugar.
Dude, I'm a train wreck. I'm in a
Really
complete
let yourself
spiral.
go.
Yeah. And
Well,
I'm
it's a good season of the year to be that to do that in.
yeah, well, just because you can restart or
Yeah, it's the end of the year. Old
You're
things
allowed to.
old things are about to become new. This is the season of hibernating,
you
brother.
know you know what's crazy, and maybe it's just because my subconscious, I don't know. I could have sworn that you were about to say it's the end of the world. Uh and I don't know why. Like
It's
I
the
don't
end.
think I don't think it's the end of the world, but as you were saying it's the end of the year, my brain filled in world. I was like, yeah, you're right, it is. Oh no, we're talking about just the end of the year.
When do you guys open up presents? Justin Frasier, do you have any kids?
I've got three,
You got three?
but I don't know that we have a tradition on presents.
So, I mean, it's not just willy-nilly. You're not like feral cats, are you?
Oh, that's the worst.
No, I mean if they're with me, then yeah, I mean probably Christmas morning.
Let me ask you this. Is there a designated Santa Claus? Like, is there someone who
No,
hands out? What the
I don't. What? I don't do Santa Claus at my house.
JW, who are you bringing around here?
Well, he's a Christian. He's a Christian man. I
We
thought
should
that.
introduce him. Wait a second. Welcome to Lawless Podcast. Welcome to Lawless Podcast with Justin and Clayton. I'm Clayton. It's my buddy Justin. We got another buddy, Justin Frasier, who's below me on the video totem pole. I don't know if it's like that everywhere.
But Is it cool if we just call you Frasier from now on?
I don't care.
I've already started it.
Right, sweet. So anyway, yeah, so but it's not like, and Clayton, I guess I should clarify with you too. Like it's one person at a time opening gifts.
That's what I like to do. Yesterday it was kind of hit and miss. We were kind of stutter stepping.
Yeah.
Didn't really hit a stride yesterday until, and this is what normally happens, until you just turn around and all of a sudden everything's going smooth, baby. We're all running like a well-oiled machine. I
Everybody's
was so
taking their turns.
Yeah, everybody's taking their turns or not, and it's just going get. No one cares. Like I eventually just papers flying. But we start off with Santa Claus, and is traditionally it's been me. This year I let my 17-year-old do it. Um, who
Now,
hands out? Go ahead.
are you so you're dressed up as Santa Claus, or you're saying that's the role?
Back,
Like,
it used to be decades ago. Never really, but the idea was someone was going to dress up as Santa Claus. That never took hold.
okay, okay. So
But
you're just
now
saying somebody's like issuing
hands
the
out
present. Okay,
he is designated the Santa Claus, he or she.
gotcha, gotcha.
And so this year it was Caleb. He was like, to Daddy from Aliana. And like, what do you get? And then he opens it. I'll open it real quick, and then you just take turns doing that. This year, that's normally what we do. This year, what we did is Santa Claus handed out a couple presents at a time. Uh, there's a couple. I have to protect some identities. There's a couple not morning people in my family, people that wake up on the wrong side of the bed often, and it's not me. And it's not it's not Cash. So we have a tendency to upset those people because we wake up singing songs and literally like dancing and
Banging pans.
yeah. And that's how every morning is for us. So Christmas morning it was at 100. And so we're like, Merry
What?
Christmas.
What time did you start your day?
5:45, baby. Yesterday is what time we did it.
Okay.
Which
And so like is that norm? Is that early, or that's, I mean, we talked about it the other day, but I don't remember.
I'll put it to you like this. Some people think that's very early. They're insulted by that time. They're accosted by that time. They're like, 5:45? Some
Gotcha.
people had that reaction. That was actually a very calm reaction. It was like, boom, 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 boom.
I'm so happy that my kids have gotten to the age where they appreciate sleep as much as I do. Like there was a time when the kids would have been up super super early, and I'd have been that like 5:45. But now, man, we kind of get up at like 8 o'clock. I mean, it was nice and calm yesterday.
How old are your kids, Justin? Frasier?
13, 7, and 5.
13, 7, and 5. Okay. So you had a little bit of a stutter step yourself there, didn't you?
Yeah.
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 All right. A little bit of a false start
Guess you could say that.
or an early start. Yeah, I got about to be 18-year-old. I just turned 14-year-old. About to be 9 and 7-year-old. Dang, my kids are growing up. One of my kids, this might be, well, one of the kids might be leaving the home, might be leaving the house, spreading his little wings next year. And this might be our last Christmas with him, at least for
It,
a Christmas or two.
isn't that crazy to think about?
It is impossible for me to actually comprehend until I'll be sitting around the kit or standing around the kitchen, making cookies or baking a ham, and I'll look at Ashley and be like, "This could be our last one for a little bit."
Hmm.
Then my world shatters and my heart breaks, and I start crying.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
So in terms of, you'd said like this is a good year to be off track,
Oh, good
or a
time of
good
the
time
year.
of the year to be off track. Are you doing any New Year's resolutions, or what's your thought on that?
Mm, if I do, I don't want it to be about some self-improvement bullshit. I want it to be
Because
like,
you're as improved as you're gonna get, or why
yeah,
is that?
well, I think it's overrated. I think focusing on being good is overrated. Like you just need to focus on being you, baby. And maybe that's
I don't know that that's necessarily
well,
exclusive, but go ahead.
right. And neither is the other part. Like I'm good. I'm a little bit nice and I'm a little bit naughty. And if you if you don't like Clayton or if you want Clayton, you're gonna get a little bit nice and a little bit naughty, Clayton. That's real Clayton.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, that's
So
just I
wait
don't
a second, wait a second.
So you're saying like instead of looking at the new year as a way to improve myself, you're trying to look at it like I'm me and that's good enough. But here's some things I could do or what?
I don't know. I don't know. It's maybe it's more I do want to constantly improve, but I think I'm taking away what I want to do. The idea there is take away these rules of like, I will not smoke any cigarettes in 2025. Take away that rule to be more like, I'm just gonna give myself as much grace and do as much as I can and do as much as I can for the world and for other people. And sometimes that might look like I'm stressed out and want to smoke a fucking Marlboro. And sometimes that might be I'm running and I'm eating zero sugar and I'm, saying nice words to people. Either way, what I want to do is maybe get specific with some things, but take off the rules of like, I will never eat a cookie for this year because inevitably I am going to eat a cookie and I am going to smoke a Marlboro. And so I know at least me personally, I'm going to be like, you fucking loser, and fall down on my knees in the rain. Or I could just say, take that away from the beginning. Instead of this year, I'm going to continue to grow and improve. And if I do set a resolution, I want it to be something like I'm going to stop apologizing so much this year. Pointless apologizing. I'm going to stop apologizing for no reason. Or I'm going to try to do it less. How about that? Even give myself the same grace on that end. Like
Yeah.
because something I do so often, it's so stupid, I catch myself. Someone will be like, hey, I sent you an email last week about this thing, just so you know. And be like, I want to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm such a piece of crap. I was overwhelmed with all this other stuff. But that's not what I wouldn't expect that from someone else. If I told you, hey, I sent you a link last week, if you could look for it, it's about this thing. I wouldn't expect you to fall on your knees and be like, I'm so sorry. I was just, oh, and give me all these reasons of why you didn't look at it.
Right.
Like honestly, last week was just such a busy week and that doesn't normally happen, yada yada yada. I wouldn't expect that from you. So why do I feel the need, and I do feel the need to like prostrate myself before someone that I didn't do the little tiniest thing for? That's just a common thing. I always be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't get to that. I was overwhelmed with this, that, and the other thing." I want to take that out this in 2025. I want to try to throttle that back and just say, "Oh yeah, I'll get to that as soon as I can. Thank you."
So do you feel like you actually feel sorry, or that's just something that you say?
I feel like I have to say it though. I do feel like a little, just even if it's for a second, like a drive-by flash of shame and embarrassment. Like, oh, she caught me not being perfect. Great. He caught me not being the best possible version of myself at this particular time.
So
Instead of
it
apologizing for that, I'm just going to acknowledge it, maybe. Or it's not even a thing. I didn't do anything wrong.
so that's what I'm asking. Is it the same as saying, um, "Oh, I'll pray for you," and you have no intention of doing it? Like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but you're not so sorry. Or is it, "Man, I really am. I should have read that email. That's horrible."
No, you know what it is? There was a perfect example of this. I don't think she listens. I'm not going to say her name, but she doesn't listen to this podcast and she's not in this position
So
anymore.
she's kind of a loser.
No, she's awesome.
Oh,
She used to work in records. She would always
oh yeah.
apologize for everything. End every single sentence in "I'm sorry." To the point where you're like, "Will you stop saying I'm sorry?" And she'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Right.
Uh, that's like the 211 version of what I feel like I do whenever anyone asks me for anything, or if I feel like someone caught me not being perfect, is I have to apologize for some reason. Like if my I don't know, like an example of this would be like if I'm in the break room at work, or if I'm in the aisle at a store and someone's walking by me, I always say, "Oh, pardon me," which is another way of saying I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Excuse me is not bad. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with. I'm working this idea out, right? Live,
Yeah.
real time. So excuse me is not bad, but instead of saying like I always say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Let me get out of your way." "Oh, I'm sorry." I just want to take the "I'm sorries" back a little bit.
Can I give you just I'll just add something to it. You
Go
could
ahead.
maybe not only try that, but just try to take up more space. Like as you're
Oh,
walking
me?
through, yeah, as you're walking through
Get
the aisle,
wide, get big.
get wide, get big, and kind of go down the middle to where you're.
Hmm.
I've done that with parking. I've done that to where instead of instead of being like right between the lines like the sheep, I I'll just park and I'll just end up wherever I end up. You know what I'm
Here's the
saying?
problem
Like, hold
is
on a second. Hold on. So I'll start to park and I may end up taking up two spots, may end up taking, maybe I'll just be mostly in one, but
yeah,
I'm just taking more space. I feel like that maybe that's something you could do, like bump into people or
yeah.
let them know.
Unfortunately, I think the entire world has taken up that New Year's resolution, the one you just described,
Oh, okay.
and it drives me fucking nuts. That's another thing. There is no personal space. So this is kind of leading why do I want to stop saying I'm sorry so much. People get in my personal space and in my kids' personal space in public all the fucking time, and it drives me bananas to where I want to start like stiff arming 6-year-olds that come up too close to my baby girl. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, get back, you little snotty brat."
Yeah.
Adults do that too, and I'm just always flabbergasted. Like, is there no shame? Do you not feel this
Like
overwhelming self-condemnation that I have?
like what are you talking about? Like
Oh, I'm
friends will
talking.
come too close or
No, not
strangers?
friends. It's strangers in public. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a grumpy old man, but I feel like whenever Frasier, feel free to jump in anytime. I I feel like people just nowadays, I feel like it's changed that people nowadays are being ruder in public, or what I
Sure.
consider ruder,
Yeah.
just less considerate a little bit, less polite. And so I feel like my knee-jerk reaction, maybe it's not even a reaction, but I feel like that has brought my awareness to me being too polite. Almost like I'm like, why am I being so polite? The rest of the world is not polite.
So okay, so you're saying that the rest of the world has gotten kind of
Less considerate.
presumptive, less considerate, like taking up the middle of the aisle. By the way, I was joking about my parking situation. I say that to say that
No,
I have the
you
hardest time parking
kinda.
this truck and I don't know why.
Oh,
But anyway, so you're saying that like people are more just jerks, basically.
yeah. And maybe this is an Atlanta thing. Maybe it's not as much in Kansas as I feel like it wasn't there, but now I feel like if I go home, maybe for some reason people are going to start acting like it there too, and I'm going to start just bitching and complaining about Wichita. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, people like changing lanes without signaling or following too close or cutting me off right in front or, never giving any room for anyone to ever change lanes. Like
Dude,
that is traffic here.
I'll tell you this that I I'm a little bit worried about the um Grand Theft Auto Need for Speed crowd like starting to like getting their license and starting to drive.
Oh no, they're becoming 30. That generation.
Well, then I don't know what generation it is that I see on
They're
Kellogg.
even worse.
I'm telling you, like I'm not trying to be just a grumpy old man. Like they're gonna hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Like leaned way back, just like zipping through, flying. And I'm like, Holy
They got their
cow, man.
Oculus Rift goggles on. They're vaping.
Yes.
They're like typing on a digital keyboard in front of them.
Yeah, man.
Netflix. You see Netflix projected onto the screen as they're driving.
Well, I just saw a commercial yesterday for this. I think it might be I don't know the brand of the car, but like where it's hands off. There's still a steering wheel, and I'm not sure. Like I was only kind of
Tesla.
watch. No, but this was a one of the main manufacturers. But regardless, the point was that they're just like sitting there with their hands in their lap, and this car is self-driving. Like I know that's not a brand new technology, but that's weird to me that it seems problematic to be like sometimes you need to pay attention, sometimes you don't.
Well, are they programming us to be they? And I even know the answer to this. The answer is yes, of course they are, even if they're not doing it consciously. They, capitalism, right? The need to fill every hole, the need to give you your every desire and to make a buck on it. So, which means to make it improve, to make it constantly never ending improving. Do they want to take away all, like, are we eventually going to be those fat people from what's that cartoon robot movie? You know what I'm talking about? Where it was just a bunch of, it's a futuristic fat society where they can't do anything. Like they have robots feed them, they have robots bathe them, they have robots. You haven't
No,
seen that movie?
I'm
Anyway,
not sure that's about.
Wally. Yeah, Wally. Man, you fucking boomer. You don't know any music movie reference. Um, no. Is capitalism trying to make it to where like we don't even have to drive anymore? Like I can just think of a song? Or is it eventually going to be like
Well,
I just want some serotonin. I just want some dopamine.
I think with driving, it's not about the driving. I think the convenience is what's profitable. People will pay for that convenience.
And if it's almost like guns. If you do get 100%, it only works if it's 100% buy off. But if all cars are automated, then it's there's going to be far less fatalities. Like even there still has to be some
Oh,
margin of
Yeah,
error, but it's going to
yeah,
be
yeah.
almost none.
yeah. You could almost drive it
What's the
to
problem with
zero.
drinking and driving?
But this I noticed this the other day. Do you guys have you've got Quick Trip in Atlanta, don't you?
Yeah.
So they put out this new app that's super convenient. But you know what I found is there's so you can order on the app, you get
Uh-huh.
from their kitchen or whatever, you can get coupons on the app. But the thing is, if you pay with the app, it's like 15% off. But
Oh.
what happens is maybe they'll tell you the price. Most of the time they'll tell you the price, but it's so easy to just go in and pay on your phone and not even know the price and pay $3.50 for a coffee that 6 months ago I was up in arms and I was like, this is crap. $3.50 for coffee that used to be $1.99, whatever. But I just pay with my phone and I never pay attention. And they've taken this, they say it's convenient. The purpose
Hmm.
of it is for convenience and it's for consumers, it's supposed to be easy, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, I guarantee you, the point is we'll spend more money. They'll make more money off of this program than they would if I had to pull out cash. And even like a card, it's
Yeah.
so easy to spend money on a card without paying attention. It's even easier just to flash your phone.
So I don't think Quick Trip is doing that. Like they are doing it intentionally, but I don't think it's for any nefarious reason. If they do want to make it easier, it's just to drive a company dollar, right? If
Well,
they
that's
do want to make it
yeah,
efficient,
that's what I'm
it's just to
saying.
drive a company
I
dollar.
mean,
It's to
another
get more.
another way to say that it's convenient is they're just removing the friction in the purchasing
Yeah.
process. You know, you have less thought going into the purchasing, and you're just like, oh, this is. I mean, it is convenient to you, but there's less friction in saying, yeah, I want, these five things, and if I do it right now, it only takes 5 seconds instead of walking around the store and hunting things down or.
So Chick-fil-A did that same thing with their super fast like mobile order process.
Yeah.
But there's got to be I mean, I don't think they're doing it. And I guess you're not necessarily saying it. You either, Fraser. Like they're doing it so that they can get our money quicker and easier.
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, that is the purpose. Like,
Yeah. So
But
does
we also
that,
appreciate that efficiency.
I
yeah.
mean, that's what that I guess that's why
It'll-
they're doing it because we want it, or at least
So at Chick-fil-A, because it's so popular, every time you
it's
see
not
it,
even that good, by the way.
yeah, it's all right.
It's
But
meh. It's
they
meh.
have like a quarter-mile line every time you see them. Real is, and it's in their hours they have a quarter. But because you know they are so efficient, you're willing to dip into that line because you're like, okay, I'm gonna be here 10 minutes tops. Like they got this line moving. I know I'll get through this.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe,
you,
and that
no, go ahead.
I think that's become their bigger selling point. Because Justin, you just
Yeah.
said it's not that good. I feel like it's changed a lot over just the past year, couple of years. I don't know if I'm the
It's
only
gone
one that
down a little bit slightly.
I think so. I mean, I know that's a hot take, but
Oh man. Well, here's the deal. Whew. I I like that hot take. That's even blasphemous with some of Justin's friends, just so you know. I
We run, by the way, we run a little bit in the same crowd, not completely, but
we can
he's
talk about that. I've been burning some of your bridges down here lately.
Frasier is he's familiar with some of the stuff we've talked about.
Um they had that spicy pimento chicken sandwich and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I did indulge. I splurged even. I got a couple of them. Like I like that spicy pimento chicken sandwich. But it is trashy American food. That is pig slop that the European, that's why the terrorists hate us, is because of spicy pimento chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, I
From,
believe it. I never had one. I know that my kids were big fans of them.
yes, because your kids have good taste. What up,
But
Margaret? What up, Silas? Yo.
yeah, she's Margaret still is not satisfied with the shout outs that I've given her. So I mean, we're just gonna have to have her on
Did
sometime.
you really shout her out or did you just try to
That,
placate her? Did
that's
you
what I
just
mean.
try to?
I was like, hey, I gave you a shout out. So she listened. She was like, Dad,
No, you didn't.
all you said was that you're proud of me. And I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah,
you
I
said my
am.
name
Like,
once.
what else am I supposed to say? I mean, she's funny. She's good
More.
looking,
Keep
whatever.
going.
Like, she's great.
No, more.
She made a joke yesterday that
She
was
can read good. She tells funny jokes. She has good shoes.
all that
She
stuff.
she's athletic.
She um she made a joke yesterday. I wish I could remember it because it was just it was good timing, you know, funny kid. But so man, what were we talking about with
We were talking about the world, brother.
convenience, and they're really just trying to make it
So do you think that bleeds over like onto okay, well let's take it back. Let's take a few steps back. Frasier, what's your feelings on let's say corporate America? Do you think they have any do you think they're nefariously trying to control the United States or the world, or do you think they're just trying to make a buck, or is there even a difference?
I think that's a big question with a lot of complexity. But when you say nefarious, that assumes the intention of something harmful, and I
Right?
don't know that I
Knowingly and willingly. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think uh, a major corporation, hypothetically, would ever put uh, whatever market their product that they know could be harmful? Like if you overdo it with this product, do you think they would ever market it to make it more pleasing toward its customers than not? Like, do you think they want to market it to make it more pleasing, this thing that could be harmful, or like just middle of the road? Like, if there was a middle, do you think they want it middle or more?
think we see stuff like that that's marketed all the time that isn't
Yeah.
good. I mean, look at the ingredients in our food, and
Right? So, like, if they
it,
wanted to put toxic dyes, metallic food coloring, or even chemicals that make sugar more addictive, even though sugar is plenty addictive on its own.
now I would say, like in that kind of space, is that something that started a long time ago? And as people tried to find a more profitable way to sell their products, they started adding other things that were cheaper. And then I would also ask, is newer products coming out, is there more of a level of consciousness around that? If that makes sense. I can't think of a lot of new products that seem as unhealthy as old products, if that
All right.
makes sense.
So what I really want to get to is, do you think that corporations, like, are there smoky boardrooms of Kellogg's and General Mills or Marlboro or, whatever, Johnson and Johnson? Are there smoky rooms where people are like, we need to get these people,
Hmm.
you know, to buy more of our Lucky Charms, and to the point where
Yeah.
they're even willing to, and I keep dancing around this, but we already know they're even willing to put harmful poison in it to maximize that profit. Are you conscious of that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, and I mean some of that is adding stuff that is um addictive, but I think part of that is pressure from corporate stakeholders, whether that's
Yeah, they're
shareholders
beholden to
saying,
their
I mean,
shareholders.
you always have that responsibility as a business to increase your profitability. And last year's 5% increase is not this year's 5% increase. And so we've got to
That's
figure
right.
something else out. And either that's making that product cheaper or that's finding a new, you know, customer segment that we haven't tapped into or growing our current customers. I don't know.
So
So I'm
that
sure that there's
is
always some thing that they're trying to unlock of how can we grow this. And sometimes that's not the boardroom. Sometimes that's flowing down and it's other people that's being tasked with, hey, you got to figure out how to
Um,
make this cheaper. We got to cut production costs by 5%.
there
this is
is
probably the
evidence of
lab.
that.
It's the laboratory, right? I mean, that's where that's where a lot of these things are happening, right? Like, well, we can add this chemical to make it last this much
Could be.
longer,
Much longer.
or we
Now,
can use this chemical to where we whatever.
I think
And
Frasier was talking about a more like hidden hand that says you will do this.
yeah, I mean, because I think everyone for the most part is just working for a paycheck and they're just saying, like, I've got to figure out how to make this more profitable. And I'm doing this because my boss said it and their boss said it. But I
Right.
also, it's funny, it's interesting that you bring up the lab uh, comment, Justin, because it also makes you wonder, if I can come up with a new chemical that makes my product 5% cheaper this year, I wonder, with long-term planning, do they have other chemicals? Do they just have on standby that they're like, well, that's our 10%
oh,
cost reduction next year. We're not going to use that one yet.
Oh,
I mean,
there's
yeah.
long-term plans.
What do you think the long term plans are?
Oh, I don't know, but I just mean as far as like corporations, because especially because you want to go off the deep end real quick, especially because a lot of them have ties to China, and China is notorious, like their cultural view, and they've incorporated this in their business view, is like the 100-year plan. They have
Yep,
hundred
that's what I was
year,
thinking of.
200
Yes.
year, and
Yep.
500-year plans. Like
Yeah.
they're not thinking about next quarter. They are also thinking about next quarter, but also they're thinking about 10 years and 30 years and 100 years. And there's, I mean, it's not a conspiracy. I think what we're doing is we're eliminating the Illuminati. We're taking the conspiracy out of it. It's just like kind of the assassins of the last year, or this wonky election, like with the media. Like, there doesn't have to be the Illuminati or the Freemasons, because there's China and because there's BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. It's not a conspiracy to know that three corporations own 90% of the U.S. Economy. It's these three companies. There doesn't have to be Illuminati, because we know, like we just laid out, a company exists to maximize its stakes, and to please its shareholders. That's why a company exists, to make a buck. And so we know that, yeah, they want to get us to get more of their product by any means necessary within the rules. There's no ethical guidelines. So whatever the laws, if they can give you a poison that makes you take all of their product all of the time, they would do that. It's just
So
the FDA says they can't do that, so they find these other workarounds with Red 40 and Sugar 5.
so
But
what are
culture,
they? What are we supposed to do about that though? Because I mean, the alternative would be regulations to say what you
Regulators.
what you can, how you can advertise, what you can advertise, and even, I mean, even to some degree, you would have to keep an eye on how much people can grow like year over year, because what did you?
Mm.
And I don't know that
I don't
that's
think that's a real
anybody's.
problem. I think that's a fake problem. I think that's like overpopulation. I don't think that's real. I don't think there is an overpopulation problem. There
What do you
might be
say,
a
Fraser?
can. Oh, go ahead, phrase. Big phrase
Well,
dog.
could go in a lot of different directions now, but I'm wondering how
We're
much
here
of
for it.
this is also a cultural problem, because I think that there's like culturally, I think people are becoming more health conscious, or at least as I get older, it seems like people my age are becoming more aware of healthier products and eating healthier foods. And I, I mean, part of the solution is like just don't buy Kellogg cereal,
Yeah.
like I don't
Right.
just eat
There's
better,
a
eat wholer
gluten
foods, and
free. Right.
Well, yeah, but we can do that, but there's a lot of people that can't. And I think
have
that's part of the problem, is that poverty and
oh,
nutrition is like
I'll tell
we
you,
can
poor
get stuck.
nutrition.
two
Well, you
kids with
just
celiac, we have to eat gluten free because we have two kids that have an allergy to the gluten protein, and our food budget doubled the first year, and it hasn't
Mm,
gone down since then. Like to buy food that doesn't have gluten in it, which is just wheat, which is in candy, it's in chocolate, it's in
yeah,
cheese, it's in all
wheat and
kinds of
sugar is
weird
hard to
stuff.
omit. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're also trying to go lower on the sugar. You can't, it's possible, I guess, but we haven't found a way to really eliminate it, but we're getting low on the sugar and gluten free. I mean, with three kids in the house on a full time and two adults, $2,500 at a minimum a month on food.
yeah. So
Wow.
and a lot of
That's
that
insane, right?
is, it's absurd, and a lot
Yeah,
of that is because of the economy, whatever. But the point is that healthier food is just more expensive, and there's a
Mm,
lot of people
it's impossibly
that
expensive.
just can't.
That's
mm,
impossible.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how much, I mean, you get into this wheel of like of America, and especially 2024, 2025, you get into this rat race of like I have to be I have to be more healthy, I have to be more conscious, right? I have to if I can if I have the opportunity to buy something a little bit healthier or a little bit more eco-conscious with a little bit less blood diamonds or a little bit less of these, chips in them, you feel the need and the right need to abide by that, but it's just getting so much more expensive. And it's getting more expensive for everyone. We're like a frog in a boiling pot of water. It's
mm.
getting so much more expensive for everyone that we're just not talking about it. Or it's just not like reality is out of skew. I saw this thing for and you can talk on this a lot, Justin Crafton, about how the VA is supposed to match 100% disabled veterans to whatever the average middle class income is, right? If you're 100% disabled for the VA, you're supposed to have an income equal to the middle class of the United States. Well, these numbers might be off a little bit, but the average income, so the average home sold, according to NARA, was X or whatever. But I remember the average income of the person that could afford that mortgage was $180,000, which means the average income of the person who bought the average selling house last year or this past year was $180,000, which means the middle class is $180,000. If
Hmm.
you want to be a homeowner in the United States, the middle 50 means your income needs to be 180. If you're not at 180, and most people aren't, like as their own
That's still a
income,
really good salary.
that's an amazing salary. It's more than what most people make. So, so most people are below that middle marker of middle class.
You're saying VA 100% disabled is supposed to get based on that?
Based on this train of thought, right? Like based on what middle class is, if the VA 100% should be able to buy a house. If you're 100%, they're saying you can't work or
Yeah,
you shouldn't be able to work. You should be
yeah,
able to live without working if you're 100%.
yeah,
That's saying we got you. You
yeah.
done it. You done enough from this point. We got you. If that's the truth, then that should be commensurate to buying a house. I'm not saying people should be making $180,000. I'm saying prices shouldn't be to the price point they are,
Yeah.
to where the middle class has to be making 3, 4 times what the middle class was 20 years ago. That's insane. But we're all in that same pot. Like, that's just an example of like how kind of out of balance it is, because we're all living in this economy where the average income of the average household, whatever, is $180,000. We're all in that same pot. We're just, what are we doing? Are we just swimming in boiling water? I
Well,
don't know.
so
What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, so we talk about it, like we bitch about it, we complain about it, and we're all
Sure.
in the same.
And there is something to awareness, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for some things. I guess in this scenario, yeah, everything has gotten super expensive. It's super expensive to buy healthy food. We know that there's poison in our food. We know that the convenience factor outweighs a lot of times the risk factor, all of this stuff that we know,
Mm-hmm.
but we just keep doing it.
Like, it is easier to just buy your kids a Happy Meal. You know what I mean? Talking about
Yeah,
like
and
parents
it's
from the
cheaper.
90s.
I
Yeah.
mean, we deal with that. We deal with that probably on a weekly basis. You think, okay, well, this kid is at work. I'm really not that hungry. This kid is going to complain about whatever we make. Let's just buy $1.99 Happy Meal or
Yeah.
a dollar whatever off
Whatever the
the.
equivalent is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to some degree, it makes sense.
Let's just get that jalapeno sausage cheddar roll from Quick Trip. You know, let's just get 5 of them.
How much is a
Like,
bag of Takis?
Would
Can we just feed him a bag of Takis? Why is he so wild? Why is their behavior so out of control? I don't know. What does Blue Lake 6 do to you? I don't know. What were you about to say, Fraser?
nothing.
Oh, so here's something I was thinking about. And and Clayton, I guess we'd actually kind of had this conversation last week, and I didn't realize it. Because I was listening back through the past couple episodes,
yeah. Yeah, we
and
hit someone with a dinger in the first 30 seconds of the last one.
yeah, it
It was
was
something.
a little bit of a bomb. But so what I was thinking, and I thought about this a little bit more last night. When we talk about, so if let's say I present you with a problem, Fraser. Well, I present you with a problem, okay, and you've got anxiety about it, you've got stress, and let's say that you're a religious type of person, and you pray. No, okay. So I tell Clayton
Get
about.
a little bit closer to your mic, J-Dub.
So Fraser, you've got a situation that is causing you stress. It's causing you anxiety. I tell Clayton about it. Clayton prays about it. I tell you, hey, my buddy's Clayton's praying about it, and you feel a sense of peace or a sense of gratitude, a sense of wellness, a sense of okay, this is. I appreciate that. I appreciate you praying for it. A sense of whatever that feeling is. Okay, that feeling, and normally we give little um disclosure that we don't know what we're talking about. So like I don't know what I'm talking about, but what I'm imagining is that feeling is produced by a chemical in your brain or a specific part of your brain being, electricity hitting this particular region of your brain. I don't know how it works, but it happens up here, right? So,
That feeling is the peace you get when you know someone's praying for you.
yeah, or just like a feeling of I read this verse and I feel comforted.
Better now. I feel better now.
Yeah, I feel peace, I feel calmness, I feel comfort, whatever it is.
I'm tracking.
If if you could produce that same feeling by a substance or a drug or a process, maybe it's meditation or whatever,
Breathing exercise.
are they not are they not the same thing? So they've got different you get there different ways. One way this
I don't think they
chemical,
are. That
but
particular one.
but is it not? So again, it's acquired by different methods. One
Hmm.
is And somebody would say, yeah, but one's real and one's manufactured. But aren't but the result is the same.
Let's use a more direct comparison. You're saying if someone said, "I'm praying for you," and someone said, like you shared the problem, they said, "All right, well, I'm thinking of you, or you're in my thoughts." What is that giving you the same feeling?
Well, it depends on
Depends on the source.
it depends on the receptor. No, it depends on the person receiving it
Yes,
because
yes.
there are some people that would say, "Well, you can think about me all day long, but I need you to take me to the Most High
Hmm.
Creator God." Or there are some people because I've heard that.
I'd
Or
say
there are
there's
some
just a problem
people.
in their thinking.
I mean, that's that. If you believe most mainstream theology, you would have to take that position. Like if you took the average church in Wichita, whoever that is,
Average
uh,
Christian church.
yeah, and present them this scenario, they should say the person thinking about you and the person thinking about you, that's whatever, good, thank you. But the
Yeah.
person taking you to the throne of grace, like that's the person that's gonna make change. I don't think there's a difference, and I think that might be what you're saying, Fraser.
Yeah, I think where you're going is there's this biological release of some neurochemical that's giving you some level of comfort, and that can be through another person either praying or thinking about you or not feeling like you're going through that alone, or you're getting that from something else. Like you said, somebody's reading some verse or they're meditating. There's some source that's releasing that chemical. I think it's the same personally, but I also don't know that I have found or felt that
Man, I think you guys are
divine connection.
Oh, you said you haven't found or felt that divine connection?
Yeah, like I don't know that I would feel different. If I was going through something and I read a verse, not one time in my life can I feel like, oh, this is helping me feel at peace with my problem. Is that a hot take?
Hmm. No, but there's a lot
Well,
there.
so run that by me again.
Like like you might read something and say like, yeah, that sounds nice. Like just using that as an example, but I never feel like
So you're saying
confident that I'm
you've never felt you've never felt like that is reaching out to phrase specifically?
yeah.
Well, he, take comfort
I
in
mean,
some,
we need to question your salvation, but go ahead,
yeah,
Clayton.
in some ways, you're right. It wasn't talking to you, and it wasn't written for Justin Frasier. I
Yeah.
mean, and I say that just as an unbiased evaluation of the text. The text was written
Yeah.
most generously 60 or 90 years after the age of Jesus, or after 90 years into the current era is when the New Testament was mostly all written. 90 years into the current era. So you're right. It was not written to you. It was the person who wrote it was not thinking about you, and the person who wrote it was didn't speak the same language. They didn't think about religion the same way you do. They didn't think about God the same way you do. That's right. But I don't think that means that for real God, and we can get into what that means because I think we have to, but like the universe, the source of all things good, the creator of everything, including everything that is happening, right? So like God does have something for you in that because you're in that wheelhouse. Man, I'm getting way too far out into woo woo right now. But you're right. It wasn't written black and white for you. The authors weren't thinking about you, but there's still something for you in that. That's a better way to
Yeah,
say
I mean,
this.
I'm not
Less
saying that
dangerous.
there's no value in that. I mean, and I, it depends on how you absorb certain information too. But I mean, another way
Yeah.
to say that is, maybe you read some sort of story and that story gives you insight into maybe how to deal with that problem or make you feel more at peace. But you could get that same feeling from a non-religious text as well and say, oh, like so and so
Yeah.
also went through this similar problem, and you hear the story of how they resolved it or were at peace with it. And
So it's the
Yeah.
same, but it's the same result though. And
Yeah,
that
the same feeling, same biological reaction. If that's what you're
Okay.
getting at, that's what I think.
yeah. And so then somebody would say, well, that's just a simulation, or that's an artificial that's an artificial representation. That's not the real thing. And what I'm asking is that not the thing? Is the thing the
The experience is
biological,
the only thing that really matters.
right? And so if somebody gets that through through the hard work of whatever, like you worked on this project for a long time or whatever, you were disciplined and you get that
Or
feeling, great. Or you do this practice, you manifest it, or you do this practice, this breathing practice or yoga or this substance or whatever.
mm, well, there's a difference between yoga and the substance. You know what this is reminding me of? And I'm not trying to play like devil's advocate, but I like 99% of the time, group 99% of the time, I'm 100% on board with you, J-Dub. But
Okay.
in this 1%, I think what you're talking about is eerily reminding me to someone working and making X amount of dollars versus someone winning the lottery.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know. Like, yes, at the end of the day, they both do have the same X amount of dollars, and they both get whatever security that they think that amount of dollars brings. But they didn't get there the same way. And sometimes, most times, I don't think that makes a difference. But I think with some things, it certainly does.
Well,
I like.
and I've got an idea, but
I'm not hearing anything.
what's the big
Oh,
difference?
That doesn't make me feel good.
Test, test, test. Fraser,
I
can
hear
you hear
you.
me?
3 still.
Yeah.
Fraser, you here?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just fine.
Crud. Man, I felt like I just
I
dropped a fucking bomb just then
No,
and we can't talk
Clayton,
about
I
it.
like your
Damn.
no, we
analogy.
heard it.
Justin, I want to know what you mean by using a substance.
Well,
Make that connection for me, comparing using a substance to something else that.
so let's say that I've got this anxiety, whatever,
Okay.
and
I'm
person
back.
A person A tells me pray about it, take it to God, like
Okay.
bring it to the good shepherd,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I do that, and I just come back and I say, hey, that was good advice. Thank you for that. Thank you. That brought me peace. That's scenario one. Or some scenario two says, hey, try this gummy or try this
Mm-hmm.
joint, whatever. And you try it and you come back and say, oh man, I feel really relaxed. Thank you. That was good advice.
Mm.
Is it not the same thing? Or person three will add a third. Person three says, have you tried meditation and yoga? And
Yeah.
you do that. You come back and say, hey, I feel great. Thanks for that. Is it the same thing? And again, the thing being, I feel, I feel peaceful. I feel, and so the spiritual person would say, well, that's real. Or not the spiritual, the religious person would say, well, that's real. The others are just, you know, the drugs are just giving you a fake feeling of it. Or the yoga is giving you, I don't know what the argument would be there, but
There's
you're
not a good
saying
I
no.
mean,
argument against the yoga because what they're putting all their weight on is the ritual or like the acts you have to do. Like, the work you have to do to get to that point. That's what they're leading on. They can't argue against yoga because that is 100% the acts you do to get to that point.
Okay.
Like that's even more acts than praying and fasting, the yoga part is. But the drug part, I think, is different. Well, I don't know. What do you think, Fraser?
well, I think when you say yoga and meditation, Justin, I think you just mean like more like breathing, slowing down,
Yeah, just
being more mindful.
I'm just using that
Um,
as a generic
but
like mindful
I think
practice.
I think all three have the potential to, like, if the problem is saying, as an example, someone is feeling anxious or feeling some anxiety, I think all three have the potential to help with that problem. But I think all three they bring different elements to it. And we could go in a whole direction on that. But like using some sort of substance, sure, it might help with your anxiety, but that might also lead to other things, different thoughts or potentially different problems depending on what substance you're using. So
Sure.
if
More
you're
anxiety.
just looking through the lens of anxiety, yeah, or even more, I mean, there's a potential of that too. You could also say that religion could cause more anxiety. Um, but I'm just saying all three have the potential to solve or address that core or initial issue. But I don't think it's as black and white as saying like they're all the same because they all have kind of different outcomes. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Well,
more to it, I guess. If all of those could be life changing, I guess. If you let me give you let's take this one step further. If you really struggled with anxiety day to day and you could only choose one path, um, maybe each of those could help with your anxiety, but your life would look vastly different if you were 100% invested in meditation versus cannabis use versus going to church every day. I don't know. I mean, your lifestyle choices are going to look different. Your life is going to look different, but could it help with your anxiety? Sure.
so
Yeah.
there's a lesson to be had here too, like even with us working this out, because what the real answer, like the ancient versions of these theologies, in it would be like something like shamanism or like the Vedic practices, like the most ancient human answer as far as like religion and drug use and even yoga. Those were all three, and even more like their science and technology was all part of that solution. What I'm getting at is I think we're out of balance now. Like you can't be just praying and fasting, and it can't be even. I don't think it can be just the drugging, and it can't be even just the meditation and the esoteric. Like the ancient answer was to incorporate all three of them, and it even like the whole community was
Yeah.
involved, like with a shaman or like a priest, another word for it. And even in the Old Testament church, like the community was part of that. So it wouldn't be Justin figuring out his own out there on his own, thinking, does this joint work or does praying work or does breathing work? It would be all of us are involved in each other's lives anyway. And if the shaman thinks that, hey, go say some Hail Marys, hit this pipe, do some stretches, get some good rest, and come back and we'll talk about it. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
if this day it doesn't work, here go eat this seed. This day it doesn't work, here do these stretches. Like it's a more holistic
Yeah.
approach.
And so I think you're absolutely right. And this kind of goes back to what at least you and I've been talking about for a while, Clayton, that like it's different practices. So it's different. Somebody, a different spiritual leader will give you different practices to do, but you end up with
Mm-hmm.
the same result. So a priest may say to do these Hail Marys and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and the priest tells you what to do and you feel forgiven, right? I did the things,
Mm-hmm.
I feel forgiven. If you go to your Baptist preacher and he says, well, you need to, 1 John 1:9 says, confess your sins. He's faithful and just to forgive you your sins, blah, blah, blah. I confess my sins. Okay, so I feel great. Or you go to the hippie or whatever, and he's,
Or you go to the Pentecostal and he would say repent.
yeah. So it's
And it,
it's
yeah.
all of these different steps that give me the same result, and that's however you get it. However,
What's your question?
well, it's less a question, more a statement that it's all the same. That
Oh,
religion and all of, or it meant no, it is a question, and the question is it not? Is it all the same? Can you say, and I like Clayton, I think you've got a good perspective that at one point they were literally all the same, and then at some point we separated them, and maybe it was just my upbringing. I don't know.
It's almost like martial arts.
mm,
Martial Yeah, because martial arts, like now you cannot say that Taekwondo is the same thing as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like even though they're both Eastern or have their roots in Eastern martial arts, they're not the same thing. Because one's vastly different. One's just striking and fast, light strikes in lots of yells and kiais. The other one is more practical, no strikes, but just about, rolling around the science of what actually works and what
But
doesn't.
sometimes it involves biting if somebody's really on top of you and you're like stressed out.
Yeah, and you can't breathe.
You can
Bite
just
that
bite them
motherfucker.
right in the middle of their back.
Right, but they were at one point the same thing, and it's because different cultures and different lenses took it and ran in a different way. I think kind of like how science and religion and these physical exercises and the diet, the lifestyles, the community built around it, all used to be part of what the Shoshone Native Americans called Wankantanka, which is the great mystery, which how they translated it as God in everything. Like God in that rock, God in the way that you talk to me, God in the way that I digested that soup from last night, God in the way that the deer comes and dances in front of the sun, God in everything. It used to be, it seems like, based on evidence, that the prehistoric man was closer to that because by necessity, because we were hunter gatherers, we had to. What do hunter gatherers look like now? That's what we looked like back then. And what hunter gatherers look like now, or at least the traces that we have, was this Wankantanka, where God is in the community that takes care of Frasier. We're in the community that feeds Frasier. We're in the community that raised Frasier's kids. Like Frasier is part of us. We are this tribe, but we're all part of Wankantaka.
And in a real sense, God did that.
God did that.
Right.
In a very real sense. God did that.
And we do this. I mean, we have the same kind of, I think.
Intention. We have the
Well,
same intention in the
we have
church.
we even have the same verbiage when we say that we're the hands and feet of Christ, or we
Right, we're the
say that
body of Christ.
yeah, or we say that God provides through the church. So this businessman did a bunch of business. He's got a lot of extra money, so he gives it to this person that is in need, and we say God provided their need. Yes, God did provide their need, provide for their need through this guy, because this guy is God, and God is this guy, and God is you, and God is me.
But is there a version of that? Because it's practically impossible to live in that ancient version of balance from back then, from the community raising each other's children to we're all involved in each other's diet, like we all feed each other because we all hunt and gather for each other, which makes the shaman much more important to all of us because he's telling us where the deer are, and he's telling you how to take care of your anxiety, and he's telling you how to cure your bubble guts, right?
Yeah.
It's practically impossible to be there today. But what does
How
it look
so?
like? Oh, well, you'd have to be on a I mean, in the United States in 2024, it's impossible.
You mean you're just like your community isn't isolated to the point where you need that central figure for that kind of
Yeah.
knowledge?
Because
Yeah.
another thing that tied them all together was the necessity of it. It wasn't just they chose to wake up and go to
Mm.
church, they had to listen to that shaman for survival.
And
They
there probably wasn't like a first such and such shaman over here, and a such and
Right. There
such
wasn't the
shaman, like,
Southern Baptist shaman. There
right.
wasn't the Church of God shaman. It was the community shaman.
The 8 o'clock service is a little bit, more traditional.
Right. So practically, I mean, you get where I'm going. Like it just the nuts and bolts of it being possible in the United States in 2025, because I mean, you could build a commune, and there has been communes, but the problem is there's a way out. Like people don't need to be in the commune. They can
Yeah, you're not there for survival. You're there
Yeah,
by
you can get out
choice.
and get a job at Dollar General if you really want to leave. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to acknowledge that actually diet is a part of our survival. We just hadn't been thinking of it that way for the last 50 years because MSNBC or
Yeah.
ABC, they haven't told us to
Well,
think about it.
but also our diet is one of those things that, like, if you really start hounding me over it, I'll just be like, bro, it's none of your business. Like, that's private.
Mm.
Yeah.
But what I eat doesn't concern you. It doesn't involve you. It actually does, but like that's one of those things that we just don't give people permission to criticize.
But how can you structure so like if your goal is to intentionally get back to that idea of balance, and I'm not saying that idea is perfect, right? I'm not saying that's the new goal, but I do
Hmm.
think that is a worthy goal. That is definitely like my temperance is another virtue is a word to describe this balance that like harmony with the world and with your ecosystem and with your idea of God. How do you how can you get there? Like if it was your perfect world, and what are you what could you do like tomorrow or today even to start getting back there?
I think you just gotta somebody's got to bite the bullet and bring weed to their small group.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
just gotta
Hash brownies. You got to do it by weed brownies first.
you gotta go to a small group, and it's got to be a open-minded small group that's willing to.
What kind of denomination is this small group, or is it
We're
non-denominational?
beyond dominant
Which means
denominations.
Southern Baptist. That means Southern
No,
Baptist.
no, no. Like I think we're into like the Unitarian Church of Unity or Unity. I don't know.
Is
Maybe
this a
you know.
Christian church? Oh, we don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that for now.
I mean, it's beyond that even.
Okay.
Um,
Are we like into the land of Wankantanka?
we're getting there. I mean, I think that I sent you a screenshot of a church that my brother sent me a while back. That I think that's the direction that the church is going. Do you
Yeah.
remember that where it said something like some people call it Jesus, some people call it such and such. Essentially, they're saying what we're saying, what you and I have said, that there is a power.
Yes.
There's a God. We call it God, and a lot of people call it different things, and people understand it different ways. But we're all here to worship it. I think that's where churches are going, and I think that in any kind of organization like that, in order to have community, you're going to have a small group because you're not going to have a deep community with 100+ people. So you have to have a small group.
Well, the first century church did because their community, there's that book I was talking about was The Immortality Key. It does a really good job. The mission isn't to describe the first century church, but it does. This book does describe the first century church was basically all built around communion, and like they would have their Eucharist, their Holy Communion, would be a feast, right? Paul talks about this in his letters to the first churches, but it was much more. I would say they didn't have small groups because their church either was a small group, like hidden in someone's house or basement, like that was the church, or the other version is where everyone comes together for this big feast and like there's dozens of people there and they are all in each other's business because that's how it was. The first century church was probably more like a small group.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I just felt it important to point that out. But the first century church, and if you want to go down that road, and there's lots of scholarly writings. I'm looking this up. Immortality Key about this, about the first century church and the Eucharist. Not to offend anyone, Brian Marescu. I say John Moralego because he wrote the Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. Brian Marescu wrote Immortality Key. But so like almost 100% of the Jewish temples that were also first century Christian temples in ancient Jerusalem were found with cannabis hash on the altar. So like we know 2,000 years ago, in the time of Jesus, they were burning cannabis on the altars. That was part of their incense. They were burning uh it was like even cannabis or something like that. I was hearing this lady talk about it. They burnt cannabis back then. The I don't know how much you guys know about this, but you should read that book. The first century the very first communion was built almost exactly a clone of the Eleusinian mystery rituals where it was based in wine, right? They would spike wine with ergot is what they were doing. They're like an LSD wine and they would soak it up with bread and that was a version of the Eleusinian. Ulysses was this place in Greece that like Socrates and a bunch of these ancient philosophers, Pythagoras and stuff, took part of this super secret uh, Eleusinian mysteries is what they would call is what it was called, and it would take away their fear of death. It would take away their fear of the gods, and they were getting high on LSD. That was the Eleusinian mysteries. The first Eucharist was built very familiar, and it was Paul was influenced by Socrates, or at least the Socratic thought, because his writings mimic it, like very close. So, like a lot of theologians will say, Paul was influenced by the Greeks. All of the first century Christians spoke Greek, It was in this part of the world where the Eleusinian mysteries took place, and the first uh, communion, Eucharist, was eerily like this Eleusinian mystery. So that's what ties it all together. First century church was community based. They were obviously conscious of their diet. They, not even getting into the God stuff, they took drugs. They smoked weed, and at least the initiates, like the secret seekers, took this LSD wine, and that's all backed up by a lot of science and like the Vatican. If you read that book, he outlines it.
Yeah, so they had it figured out.
Well, at least they were
Now,
closer to a balance,
I mean,
to this idea of balance.
and so
They had
like
their own problems. They weren't.
I didn't know that. Well, maybe I guess I considered it. Like I've long thought that Revelation was either written by like he was either
It
having
seems drug induced.
hallucinations based on starvation
So,
or drugs,
Yeah.
and either way is fine with me. And this is again same thing. Like so one person achieves the feeling through starvation or fasting, and they get clarity, whatever they get it, and the other person gets it from the different whatever.
Well,
And
the ayahuasca rituals, they do both of those.
so yeah, so like think of like a vision quest, or Native American whatever that would incorporate substances into their
Physical things. Think about like with the yoga, or like the Native Americans, they did the running. Like they'd run through the desert barefoot
yeah.
and naked, or sit in the sweat lodge. So they incorporated this physical. That was part of their theology, right? So they incorporated this physical exercise, a healthy running routine or jogging routine,
We've
with the
talked
prayer. Go ahead.
we've talked before about the runner's high,
Yeah.
and um, like when I have achieved it or felt it, and like the perspective for me was just like an out of body, like I'm now talking about the guy running. I'm not the guy running.
Yeah, you're detached.
And, we've talked about feeling that from a spiritual sense, from a spiritual perspective. And I guess the whole point, the whole question that I'm asking is we would say that the average religious person would say that the religious version is true. The other versions are stand-ins or like maybe like a bad knockoff or a
I would
well,
even hear they're trying to emulate God, or they're trying to reproduce it because they know they're not God. You know what I mean?
well, and so like maybe for some things you would say that it's demon or it's Satan or
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
pretending to be God.
It's the
Like on
deceiver.
I can imagine somebody
Drugs,
say that with drugs. But yeah,
yoga.
so
I
the
heard that about
question is
martial arts.
like, can you? I guess maybe I'm just realizing that it's kind of all the same, and maybe you should just find it, whatever
There's
it is
that
for
message
you.
is definitely there from the universe. Like you could definitely take that message from the universe. And looking at this, it's like the universe is laying this out to you. But other people could hear that in a different way. And the universe could say that to, but I think right now God is telling us that it's all a lot more connected than it seems.